Okay, both went gold, and and even me, I know I was hating them at the time, but I remember listening to that Lloyd Banks single, "Hands Up," and I remember just kind of in awe of like, damn, like this.
This is all you got? This is really it?
Well, because it was such a stark contrast. Like,
100%.
like there was kind of that grittiness to it in the beat. But it was just Lloyd Banks. Even the hook when I said "hands up," his voice sounded a little bit more high pitched. You want to get with a star. Like it was Lloyd Banks, but it wasn't Lloyd Banks. I don't know what. And then I'll be honest with you, Young Bucks. I can't even tell you the name of the second album.
Buck the World. Hey, I actually like that second album.
Hey, and maybe it was good, but funny thing is I watched an interview. I think it was with Vlad TV. I watched an interview. I guess at this point in time, 50 and Young Buck were having some hardships, a little bit more inner workings, and G-Unit were kind of falling apart. And I guess 50, because of their kind of disputes or whatever like that, I guess he said, "Okay, Buck, well, you promote the album yourself." That's why it didn't get as much love. I remember seeing one advertisement for it. It was in XXL magazine. I was flipping through the advertisements, and yeah, Buck the World. And I think he's like photoshopped, kind of hunched over. And I just remember I was like, well, damn, like, I could have done that. And then I turned the page. That was the only advertisement I ever remember seeing for Buck the World. Like, you just didn't hear about it. I couldn't even tell you a music video for Buck the World. Like, so I don't think 50 or G-Unit, like, really promoted it as much, and it might have been done to like what Young Buck was saying in that interview. He was kind of left to do it on his own.
I'm gonna chime in on this one.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So what happened with that situation of why that whole thing wasn't promoted, the Buck the World second album? So this is when things started to go. They made their turn for the worse, for as far as Junior started to make their dissension. So 50 Cent had a manager named Shy Money XL, and he had been his manager for years, and they had a disagreement. And so 50 had told Banks, he told Yayo, he told Buck, he said, "Hey, things ain't working out with Shy Money. I need y'all to fire him and get you different managers." So everybody does that except Buck.
Oh, 50.
Except Buck. Buck didn't do it. And Buck actually was Shy Money XL's right-hand man at his wedding. So it's kind of hard. I don't know what anybody could do in that situation. You was a best man at somebody's wedding, but then your boss here is telling you need to fire him or
fire him.
So you don't do it. You stay loyal. So that right there in itself, again, we talked about it, loyalty. If you don't be loyal to 50, then if he sees something, then there you go.
Then you're his enemy. Yeah. Oh,
so
man.
That's what happened with Buck. Buck didn't do that. So that's what made 50 like look at him sideways and be like, "Okay, I'm not dealing with you, because you didn't do what you were supposed to do." And then there was I guess there was an interview that Buck had did, and he said he hadn't received any royalty checks for the songs that he had made. And so that made 50 furious about him saying that. And then Shy Money had to clean it up. He was like, "No, man, Buck is getting his checks. He's getting everything. That was a misunderstanding." But then there was another thing that popped up a Buck. So he was at a Lil Wayne concert, and Birdman was there too. And so Buck was there. He was up on the stage with Birdman and Lil Wayne. And they told him that, like, "Man, you should be back here at Cash Money, FG Unit. You need to come back where you started at." And so it kind of seemed like he agreed with that. So I guess 50 caught wind of the video, and yeah, that was pretty much the beginning of the end for Buck being on G Unit. So that was why Buck the World wasn't promoted. And like I said, I like Buck the World. I like those songs on there. Like, one video I did see was that "I Know You Want Me," and it had featuring Jazzy Faye on there. And I
heard that song.
Damn, that's a name I've not heard for. Jazzy Faye, man.
Yeah, that's what. Hey.
Hi, get away.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, that's one of the reasons right there why Buck the World was not heavily promoted the way it was. And then you also talked about with Banks as far as Rotten Apple. that album didn't do too well either, you know. And I think that was because it was the beginning of the end. You just said it, Ace, as far as with the East Coast. You know, I feel like at that time, the South was coming up. Like, you had Chamillionaire, you had Paul Wall, you had Mike Jones.
Yeah. Texas
Bun
was
B.
blowing up.
Yeah,
Texas was
Chopped and Screwed was.
Yeah, that thing was huge.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then you had Atlanta popping. So once Banks came out, you know, and I think he was going up. I don't forgot whose album he was going up against, but when he came out, it was just kind of like, okay, you know, but G Unit was kind of fading away at that time, you know. Right. It was kind of the beginning of the end for them, you know.
And yeah, I know Ty. I definitely agree, and I think, you know, again, like I said, for people that didn't go through it, you know, maybe they were too young or something like that. But like, it's crazy to think, but you know, it really did feel that way. I mean, there was like talks of like, you know, hip hop is dead now because there was this kind of backlash to the new South sound that was very, very prevalent, and it was a different sound. I mean, what made G Unit so popular was their gangster, gritty, street, cold kind of vibes. And in 2008, the people, that's not what they wanted. Radios didn't want that. They, you know, they were looking for a whole like 180 of that. You know, where, you know, you could keep it gangster, but I'll say it like this: it would be better if you kept it gangster, but you put a nice little dance to it. That would get you that instant radio play. Like that's gonna make it hot. If you can come up with that, that was what was selling at the time. That's just how the scope of things was for the hip hop game during then. And
I'm actually proud of you for saying it like that. If that's any other words you usually say about that year.
I said if you could put a dance to it. I got another word for it. But oh, you know, don't worry. We'll talk about the dead years.
No,
we'll talk about the dead years in another.
No. The dance years. Yeah. That's a better way to say it.
But so it was tough for Gino, and you know, and like I'm just gonna say it, like Yayo didn't get another album.
Yeah, he was dropped.
but again, what did 50 say? 50 said that he's good. He ain't gotta make nothing else because again, he's good.
He heard enough.
That one album was enough to prove.
That one album was enough right there.
Look, you good. You ain't got to do no more.
You ain't got to do more. So, and you know, and like I said, and look, and so I think you saw this trend. So Banks, Buck, not so hot. Yayo not getting another album. And this wasn't even, and I think this is a good time to also bring up 50 Cent could also not be unscathed by this new sound, this new era, because, and again, we talked a little bit about this earlier before starting the show, but one of the dumbest things, I think, in my personal opinion, dumbest decisions for 50 Cent, and again, now that we talked about it more and more, it just seems like this constant trend. Kanye West, another, I don't even have to explain who he is because he's more bigger than he was back then now. But Kanye West decided to come out with the album. I want to say it was Graduation. At the same time as 50 Cent's, this would have been 50 Cent's third album. What was it called? Curtis. And literally, you know, hey, that's totally fine. Nothing about it. 50 Cent, not even Kanye West, 50 Cent decides to take the notion up and say, hey, if Kanye West's album sells more than my album, I will retire from hip-hop. Like, you know, I felt like Nate Dogg, the 96 Source was like, you know, why would you do that? Like, you know, like, why would you bring this upon yourself? And of course, Kanye West Graduation sells way more than Curtis, I believe. And yeah, so people were like, okay, so you gonna hang it up? Like, what are we doing? And no, he doesn't. He just, you know, he doesn't do it, but it wasn't a good look. I'll say it like that. It wasn't a good look for 50 Cent. You know, for sure. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It was bad. It was a stupid decision. Again, it goes back to that ego. And again, as Ty was saying, like I said, it literally just feels like The Godfather. The loyalty factor, like I said, you know, if you didn't loyal to him, no matter who even if he dissed you, it's other people, then you're gonna be kicked off. Young Buck was basically, you know, exercised out of the group.
Right.
The game, you know, obviously kicked off because he wasn't loyal. It's like the Godfather story. Like, you know what I'm saying? Basically, he's the head. And no matter what happens, you have to follow what he says, no matter what. Like I said, it's just like, man, like, this is just a story of someone's ego being too big for their own good and not realizing that they're their own destruction of the thing they helped build.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, and you know, and that kind of talking about loyalty and stuff like that. So I have a question for you guys personally. Could you do it, or would you do it, or endure that? Like, because you know, I'm thinking about it. This is kind of more of like an opinion based question. It's like, think about it. Let's say you're an upcoming artist. You have the potential to join this superpower group. They're selling millions of records. You're definitely going to be guaranteed exposure. But the caveat to that is, it is very much you have to do what your boss says. You know, jump when he says jump, stand when he says stand. You know, like, yeah, you're going to be part of promotions. You're going to get some money for sure. I mean, because, you know, even when we were talking about Bulletproof the other day, like I was thinking about it, like, you know, how many people can say like, oh, I'm in a video game? Like, you can literally buy and purchase a game that you are a character in. Like, granted,
and Blood in the Sand too.
Because, well, oh yeah, there's, yeah, there's also a sequel, guys. We mentioned that there is a sequel for the Xbox 360, I think, called Blood and Sand, and that didn't do so well either. I said, I'm not saying they're good video games, but like, so what I'm getting at is you have this opportunity to get exposure and to do all these cool things, but you are going to be in a very tin hut command type situation. Would you like that? Would you put up with that? Would you do it?
I mean, for me, I would probably wouldn't, cause I feel like I would rather be independent and just try to do it on my own, and try to see how I can go from there instead of doing it somebody else's way. Cause like you said, Ace, like you have to do what they tell you to do. You know, and I don't know, it's all based on your personality. If you are a person that, you know, is like willing to follow somebody else's lead and is willing to do what is asked and be that type of person, then by all means you should do it. But if you're not that type of person, then it's probably not best for you to do that, especially if you have a independent entrepreneurial mind to do things on your own. Then it would probably be best for you to do it by yourself. But so for me, in my opinion, me personally, I would probably just not go that route, because I know that if I go that route of following somebody else's lead, then there's going to be some tension and there's going to be some clash of heads. So I would just do my own thing.
What about you, Cam?
I would say, hell yeah, I would do that stuff. Got that money and the power and the women. Oh heck yeah, that's everything I want. You know what I'm saying?
Where do I sign?
You know what I'm saying?
Ready.
But again, no. To be real and everything, like I said, no, yeah. I probably would follow along for a little bit. Obviously, once it got to that nitty gritty, that stuff, then I'm like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this stuff. Then like the game or anyone else would do. Like I said, back away. I got my exposure. I got what I needed out of this group. I got what I wanted. And then now it's time for me to back off and do my own thing and start my own brand. But because of that exposure I got beginning with such a huge group like this, that is going to help me stay relevant and hopefully propel me to even greater heights.
Yeah, no, that is a good answer. And you know, and essentially, kind of just relating that to the game, I think that was another thing that was kind of like, oh, you know, like it didn't help matters. Is Game would go on his own, you know, and whether you hated Game or liked Game, the whole spiel was, could he do it? You know, now that he is, you know, he's been talking all this mess. He's been kicked out of the group. Can he do it without them? And he would come out with the Doctor's Advocate around the same time. And unlike his counterparts, Young Buck and Lloyd Banks, Game would continue to go platinum. I don't know how much platinum, but I do know, I think it was like more than twice. The Doctor's Advocate would go platinum. So yeah, that also was kind of like, oh, you know, that had to raise some eyebrows as well. So like I said, the late 2000s, it was getting harder and harder and just tougher for G Unit. And their influence on the hip hop game.
What about you, Ace? What would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
Oh, what would I do? Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you guys. Like, it would be tough. Like, if I knew that signing this dotted line could get me, you know, a lot of money, and that, you know, get record deal, and just, it would be tough. I guess I would have to know. I think originally, if I was presented with that and I didn't know my boss was like the way he was, yeah, I'd sign it. You know, I mean, hey, that's a good deal. He's obviously knows what he's doing. But yeah, it would rub me the wrong way if it was like, you know, I told you to do this, you have to do it. That's not me. Like, if anybody knows me, like, personally, and you guys would probably test that, you know, I kind of like doing things my own way. I really don't have, like, you know, if somebody, like, I'm willing to cooperate and work with people, but I do tend to kind of just do things my own way, kind of thing. So I could not stand a boss that would do that. So
I would say that's totally wrong about yourself. I would say that you do the complete opposite of what people tell you to do. So I feel like
that's my way of doing things
not,
my own way.
Yeah. I feel like it's literally someone says do this, and then you're just like, so what's the complete opposite of what you just told me? And I'll do exactly that. I think that is more your style, Ace, more than anything.
I mean, yeah.
And I probably Ty will probably back me up on that any day.
Damn. Well, maybe that'll be another episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next episode. You know what I'm saying?
But yeah, and I mean, and I don't want it to get too late on us, guys. But because there's just so much to cover. We're in the late.
Let's just do the simplest thing. Let's talk about the other. Just quickly go over the other members, just so we can get a little.
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. That's a good suggestion, Cam. So
obviously the first one
we will talk about.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Damn.
My bad.
So before we conclude, I think some things to mention. Well, Cam, since you seem ready, why don't you go ahead and mention some of the other members?
So, we can break it down. You'd say I'll start with the first one, Spider-Loc. Like I mentioned earlier and everything. Obviously, what I know about Spider-Loc is that he was first.
Man sucks. Like.
Yes.
So,
thank you for that wonderful.
Hey, Cam.
He never got an album. First of all, G-Unit at all. He was first discovered by Suge Knight. He tagged along Death Row, but just never signed. He met Buck about 4 months, and then about 4 months later, he actually joined G-Unit. He made mixtapes, but no album under G-Unit at all.
Right, and I will say just for everybody, like the only time my exposure to Spider-Loc was on. This would have been years later. This would have been like 2009, so well past G-Unit's prime. 2009, there was an upcoming artist named J-Rock from the West Coast. Like I've told you guys before, I'm huge into West Coast rap, so I follow all the upcoming West Coast artists at the time. And J-Rock did a song called All My Life. Got radio play, it was a hit. And he made this huge remix with all the up-and-coming young West Coast artists coming out. And Spider-Loc ended up on the record, actually. And probably one of the worst verses on that record. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like,
I wonder why.
It was rough. It was rough. And so that's my only exposure to Spider-Loc. I did go back and listen to he's a Crip. He is a Crip from Los Angeles. He has a song called Blutiful World.
Of course he does.
I mean, it's okay. It's just okay. It's nothing. It's all right. I would say like
yeah. The only time I've ever heard of Spider-Loc, he was actually on this Madden game that I used to play on PlayStation 2.
Ooh.
It was like Madden 06, I think, and it was a song called When I Get Angry. And that was like the only time.
That's probably his song for after not getting a record from G-Unit. You know what I'm saying?
It could be because
he taking it out on 50.
Could be because
he's taking it out on 50 right there.
That was the only time I ever heard of Spider-Loc, man. And I guess Game was supposed to have that G-Unit West, but when Game left, they gave it to Spider-Loc.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that, but it does seem like he was just kind of a fill-in.
Hey, we need like a replacement game.
We need a West Coast, a replacement game. Spider-Loc, come over here. Like, that's kind of what it seemed like. And like, I remember, I wish I could find the article, because other than XXL Magazine, there was XXL Presents Shady 45 Magazine. I think it only had like a couple issues, basically NMM's magazine.
Yeah.
And there was a whole G-Unit interview. And they got Young Buck, Lloyd Banks, Tony Yayo, and Spider-Loc. No 50 Cent. And Tony Yayo is the one conducting the interview, and this man is literally quoted for saying, "Now, Spider-Loc, to me, you're the greatest artist from the West Coast." So, like, just
man.
like the whole, like, just dick riding. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it.
I wonder how far you're gonna go with that. You just straight just called it what it was.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you like, because we all know Spider-Loc is not the greatest from the West Coast. Like, Tony Yayo should be ashamed of himself for even saying that. Like,
in Tony Yayo's defense, he made the greatest album he could make at the time.
That's true. This might be Tony Yayo's definition of greatest, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, because golly, like, it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. But So, anyways, yeah, and then there was. Let's go ahead and just talk about these three together since they did kind of sign on at the same time. So, 50 Cent did a thing during this era, which I think was kind of a misstep, but take it how you will. As we were saying, 2006, 2000 through like 2008, 2009, hip hop was changing. The South was very prominent. A new sound was rising. Definitely the opposite of what G-Unit was sounding like previously. So 50 Cent to combat this or I don't know what he was thinking actually on this, is he decides to go back. Rather than trying to find a new sound, he decides to go back to the 90s. We're talking early to mid 90s, very prominent New York rappers who were established already, and he signs them. So this isn't new talent. These are all very well-known East Coast rappers, and I would say even mainstream outside the East Coast well-known. You have the group Mobb Deep, you have M.O.P., and then you have Murder Mace. Well, at least at that time he was Pastor Mace, and now he was back to being Murder Mace, who was originally on Bad Boy Records. He was running with P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, and Biggie at the time, and now he is now running with G-Unit. And he is back to being Murder Mace. And M.O.P., I think everybody and their mama knows Annie Up. Annie Up, just gritty, that really hardcore, vicious, almost DMX-like East Coast sound that was popular at the late 90s. And then Mobb Deep, definitely Havoc, like I mentioned before, he produced beats on Game's documentary. And he probably produced on several other members, I'm sure. But also Prodigy, he was people definitely considered him lyrical. Definitely considered him, to be kind of rugged coming out of the East Coast, in the mid to late 90s. And now they're... go ahead.
Speaking on Havoc, just a little funny little tidbit. Him and 50 both got a tattoo of each other's group on their body. So
well, I was gonna say that I know that was a big controversy, and we'll get into that. So this was what you would think would be for at least for those groups, because mind you, they were prominent and very at their peak in the late 90s. But now we're talking late 2000s, and they are not as prominent as before. So at least on their side of things, this looks like, oh, heck yeah, this is like a resurgence. Basically, we're on one of New York's top-selling labels. G-Unit's a well-established brand. We're going to have 50 Cent on our hooks. And we can get, maybe access to maybe some Dr. Dre beats as well. Like, these are good ways to promote us, to get us our second win, basically. Breathe some new life. But one, as I mentioned before, I do believe that just the atmosphere of hip-hop wasn't going to resonate with them at that time. Mm-hmm. Second, like Cam was saying, I think for Mobb Deep fans especially, too, when they saw Mobb Deep get G-Unit tattooed on their hands, a lot of that back then looked to be like a sellout. Like, again, Mobb Deep fans, as much as they liked Mobb Deep, that didn't necessarily mean they were G-Unit fans. And so for them to go just full throttle and tattoo it on their hands like that, a lot of people, they started getting a lot of hate. Even from within their own fan base. So, yeah, I don't think it was a good kickstart to this second wind, as I was mentioning before, for the groups. And now, out of the three I mentioned, Mobb Deep would be the only ones to get an album actually out. And yes. I don't think it did well to today's standards, but it wasn't doing no million. I don't think it went platinum. I think it was called Blood Money. I think, yeah. And from what I've heard, I haven't listened to it all the way, but from what I've heard, I heard it's decent. I heard it's not bad. It just for 2000, I think it came out 2006, 2007. It just wasn't going to be what was hot at the time.
Did they have Out of Control on there? The remix, the Out of Control remix on that album?
I wish they did. Come to find out, and maybe this, again, we could talk again. This is such an interesting topic. You could talk about G-Unit for days, but I guess 50 decided to have Out of Control remix not on that album, but he took it for his Massacre album on the deluxe version.
Oh, okay, it was on the deluxe version. Okay.
So technically, it's a 50 Cent song with Mobb Deep on it. Now, me personally, I feel like he probably should have gave it to them on their album, but 50 need them sales, I guess.
Hey. Again, that ego. Feed that ego. Feed that ego.
And that's what it did. It did. That Massacre album was a big album too.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, when it comes to Blood Money, I really did love. I think it's called "Let's Have a Party." I think, oh yeah, that's Mobb Deep's single for the album. It's got Nate Dogg on the hook and 50 Cent's featured on a verse. It's fire. I absolutely love that song. So I needed to make time to go and listen to Blood Money because, like I said, it's been a long time and I haven't listened to it all the way through. But yeah, so it didn't do so well. They ended up parting ways. I know afterwards. MOP, unfortunately, I know they got on a few mixtapes, but they never got an album release.
They got one. I think they got one music video that came out, and that's about it. Same as Mace kind of situation.
Yeah, Mace. That's another one.
Like one official song, and that was basically obviously he was on mixtapes, but that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So basically both or all three of 50's kind of ventures really didn't come up with anything, unfortunately, and yeah, and I think after that, the one thing that's a kind of an interesting and unexpected story was Lil Scrappy. So
yeah, well, we forgot someone before. We forgot someone else before we began with Lil Scrappy. Lil Scrappy's the last member, as far as I know.
Oh no, it gets even longer. It gets even longer. But go ahead. Who are you gonna say?
I was gonna say Young Hot Rod.
Oh yeah, I mean I was gonna talk about him next, but we can talk about.
Oh, good. Like I said, no, we can talk about Lil Scrappy.
So around 2007, 2008, 50 finds this artist named Young Hot Rod. I want to say, isn't he from Arizona? He's from Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah,
right?
he's Phoenix bound.
Yeah. So
he was a former mortgage broker, and again, he was just excited to actually have a career. As far as his interview,
exactly. And from my understanding is, he was expected to do good because 50 Cent was very much stuck in his ways of he loved that rugged, gritty sound. Which hey, that's totally cool. I dig that sound. I like it. But again, like. I can't stress enough, guys. 2008, I mean, God, I think, was that Have Your Chang Hang Low and Walk It Out? Like, this was not the era for that. So, it just wasn't.
No, it was not.
And so, Hot Rod, they got a music video out, and it didn't do well. And as soon as 50 Cent saw that, 50 Cent had a kind of a habit of, if your single didn't do well, and Cam, you mentioned this earlier with Olivia, if it didn't do numbers, 50 Cent pretty much just kind of walked away. He pretty much kind of cleansed his hands and said, okay, well, you figure it out. Make yourself hot, and then I'll come later kind of thing. And so Hot Rod was having a hard time connecting with audiences. And I think matters got worse when Hot Rod was on tour with 50 and the rest of G-Unit. And supposedly, this is bad. This is so bad. 50 Cent's idea of bringing Hot Rod along for the concerts was for him to be a hype man, and so that way he could get him some exposure, get the name Hot Rod out there. Well, during one of the performances, I guess Wankster came on, and 50 Cent's performing it. Hot Rod's on stage with him, crowd's loving it. I don't know what part, but it came time for Hot Rod to intervene, to do, I don't know if it was the hook, I don't know if it was like, just backup vocals. He forgot the words. He forgot the words to Wankster. So it gets bad quick. And Wankster, I could kind of forgive somebody for not knowing the words now because, it's been years. But back then, everybody and their mom knew Wankster. Like, that song was so popular. Hot Rod forgot the words. 50 Cent gets mad in front of, we're talking thousands. He gets pissed in front of thousands of people and basically, like, belittles Hot Rod in front of everybody, takes his microphone from him and tells him to get off his stage to his own label person. Hot Rod is kicked off of the G-Unit concert for forgetting the words of Wankster, and it's just bad. It's just bad. It's awkward. He said after that, him and 50 didn't talk for like a good several months. He just so you can imagine at this point in time, it sounds like G-Unit was kind of this house where you sat in a room and you kind of didn't know your stance on things. You didn't know if Daddy 50 was going to knock on the door and be happy, or if he was going to knock on the door and just start yelling at you. That's what it honestly feels like for me. You know what I mean? What's your guys' take on this? The state of G-Unit come the 2010, late 2000s, like.
Man. So my take on it is like, what y'all said, Ace and Cam, is it was kind of the beginning of the end for them. The music was changing, and then just Ace, as you were saying, the acts that 50 was signing as far as with the MOP and Mobb Deep, it probably wasn't the best signings to get. I mean, you probably would have, I don't know, honestly, I would probably try to go with somebody younger, somebody that would probably try to help save the unit while they were kind of on the decline. Yeah. So that way they could have had somebody that could help it stay afloat. But it just didn't happen. The sounds was changing. The South was taking over. And it almost just seemed like it was just inevitable. Like there was just nothing that they could do, you know. I mean, no matter what they did, it was just gonna go down, you know. I mean, just like we talked about, T.I. was coming up, Lil Wayne was there, and all these other guys was coming up, and then you had the dance movement, like, so I mean, all that stuff was big, and all by, you know, with 50 and them being there, they was just kind of lost by the wayside, you know. And
they just kind of like out of
yeah,
place.
they was just out of date, you know. And it's just crazy how things can change from, we're talking about 02, 03, and now here we are in 07, 08, and
it just changed so
just
much.
changed that fast. We're talking about MySpace now, you know.
Oh yeah.
So it's
that was another thing is like, you know, again, not to date ourselves, but like now that we're in 2009, 2008, the one huge factor that's different than when 50 and them were coming up is YouTube. YouTube is now here, and it is a strong for. You got Vivo sucking everybody up, trying to get their music videos. You got, you know, and then finally, I think this is around the time 50 Cent later on would create thisis50.com, and he would also start posting videos on his This Is 50 like YouTube channel. So, now the scope of how music is being distributed, how music is transferred and listened to, completely changing.
100
of things.
100%. Like I said, Ty, like I said, great explanation of everything. I would say the downfall would probably happen in 06 for me, because again, you didn't really see as much from them. Again, obviously the beef with the game started the process and everything, and obviously continued beef with the rest of the people, kind of. And then again, 2007, 2008, 50 over here hiring, saying, looking at these old school rappers because he's a big fan of them. And it's like, well, they're not the right persons you're looking at. They saying they're old, saying, and then like trying to hire these new kids to try to keep everything afloat. It's just was like temporary satisfaction until basically, because again, it was like temporarily trying to maintain your float before you got fizzle out. And again, as you said, 2008 it was the death. But again, I think 2006 is the beginning of the end for them. And after that, like I said, it's just a slow decline for about 2 or 3 more years. And obviously, 50's little thing with Kanye was the stupidest thing ever, as they said. Saying that didn't help at all, at all, and everything. And then you just kept going down here. You're beefing with Buck, your inner members again now. So all these things are affecting you, and you're still getting dissed at this time too.
Like I say, like the beefs keep coming.
The beefs are left and right still at this time.
And I'll just like I said, I'll just briefly mention a couple of them that would happen later on. But before I do, I do want to say at this current time, the other two references to G-Unit at this time, like the two that really stick in my mind, like when you say the dead years, the dance years, whatever you want to call it, when I think of that late 2000 era, when you say G-Unit to me, I don't even think the core members. I think of Lil Scrappy, because I will say Lil Scrappy was an artist from Atlanta, right? He's from Atlanta, Georgia. He was prominent in the crunk movement with Lil Jon, and you would think it would, on paper, it sounds like it'd be perfect. 50 Cent and Lil Jon said, hey, let's make Lil Scrappy a big artist together and work on an album together. So Lil Scrappy for one album would be on G-Unit, and it didn't do so well. The Lil I'm not for sure the reasoning. From what I've heard, it's just the promotion wasn't there. I think Lil Scrappy had gotten into a bad hospitalization where he was in surgery for a long time that delayed some things. He was getting kind of more experimental with the albums, and it just wasn't landing. So a lot of reasons. But point is so again, another kind of hit and miss for the G-Unit, and for Lil Scrappy, it sounds like.
Agree.
And then also on top of that was, the one thing, and maybe it's, the Latino in me or something like that, but it's the oddest thing, but definitely Daddy Yankee, who is, everybody knows the name Daddy Yankee now, but back then, the way you knew Daddy Yankee, he was hot, he got radio play, but back then, nowadays I would say reggaeton, Bad Bunny, Anuel AA, like all of them, reggaeton is well known, right? It's mainstream. Back then, if you listened to reggaeton, you knew Daddy Yankee, right? He big name. I remember Rompe. Rompe was a hot song, got radio play, was everywhere. And for whatever reason, G-Unit's on the remix. You got Rompe with Daddy Yankee, and you got Lloyd Banks and Young Buck. rapping on Rompe. That's what I remember them doing.
Again,
So,
it was trying to stay relevant. It was
yeah, I
actually
mean, hey, I
it was
can't take that away from him.
yeah.
You're right. Yeah,
So
you're
it
right.
was literally just saying it as it's just pointless things that happen. Like I said, as you said, all these beefs slash hiring people. Again, Lil Scrappy was a great choice. Lil Scrappy was on the come up. Like I said,
Yeah,
he
he would have
was
been on from the
yeah
South, and yeah,
yeah. It was a come up. Like I said, so I don't fault June for that. You know what I'm saying? Because again, Lil Scrappy was on the incline at that time. It's just Lil Scrappy's health slash situation interfered with his whole career. And there is that again. You're gonna again in the industry like this, you're gonna have some L's. So again, and that's what happened. And it was a constant decline, like straight up. And with nobody, when you're having nobody on your side because you have literally didn't beefing with everyone, nobody's there to help you out to maintain yourself because again, and even if people who weren't even involved, I can see them. Like I said, if I saw someone like 50, if I was a big music person at the time, I wouldn't get involved because what's going to say he's going to turn his back on me eventually. It would be what I'm saying, because 50 has shown throughout the decades that he isn't willing to just disrespect anyone and anywhere. So again, would you take a risk as someone who is known to be brutal against anyone? No.
yeah, yeah. No, and then kind of just to kind of go forward too a little bit with all this is, so we've pretty much talked about obviously from the sound of things, and I'm sure you guys could probably tell if you're listening to this, is the late 2000s was pretty brutal. It was pretty hard and a tough era to get through. And I hate to say it, but going like 2010, going into the 2010s, 2010s, whatever you want to call it, it would pretty much just only, I wouldn't say get worse. Like I think the bloodiness kind of tampered down, but what's even worse is now the quietness, the stillness. Because I can tell you guys at this current time, leading up until now, what occurred was essentially there was the falling out with Young Buck. I think gets worse, right? It gets worse. I know Lloyd Banks. I think even now, currently, Lloyd Banks and 50 are no longer cool with each other.
Yeah, they're not cool with each other right now. No.
Yeah, they I think around 2000, I don't know, 17, 2018. It just became more and more prevalent that they just stopped talking to each other. I don't know if, and they just really just were having problems to where now they're just not cool. They're just not cool. Yayo and 50 are still cool together, but like I said, Yayo hasn't put out an album since 2005. And
which is the greatest album ever produced.
Which is the greatest album of all time.
I will basically clarify that every time I hear you say that, because that is
and even then, and even then, I will say though, I'm not gonna say I feel bad for Yale because he's a grown man. He can do what he wants. He can do what he wants. But there is you can go online right now and you can find several audio clips or video footage of basically 50 Cent just punking the shit out of Yayo. Whether it's throwing him in bushes, whether it's calling him up and saying, "Hey, look, I need my money," it just kind of disrespectful stuff. And Yayo kind of just is the yes man. He kind of just "Oh, come on, 50, it's cool, man, it's cool." And like I said, it kind of goes back to that question I asked you guys about earlier. Would you be willing to endure it? For some cash. I mean,
not that,
yeah.
not that.
Not that.
There's a level of just disrespect.
Yeah,
it's no person should ever endure.
Nah.
And Yayo's I don't care. I got money.
I got that.
I'm getting paid.
I have
that
no
money.
shame in myself. I know I'm worthless, but I'm here for that.
Oh, dang, Cam.
I am here for that paycheck every single day. That's what he says.
Yeah, I was gonna add one more thing too about the reason for the downfall too. Back in the 2000s. One thing I also wanted to point out was also at that time the reason for the downfall was 50 was big. I mean, he had a lot of money. He had millions of dollars, and he had already sold millions of records. He had already did a movie. He already did a video game. He already did vitamin water. So at that time, he was already a rap mogul at that time. So he didn't really have much left to prove, on the music side. And really, what could he really rap about anymore? He's not in the hoods no more. He can only talk about what he used to do, but he's not there no more. He's going to talk about what he can do now. So to me, that would be another point of the reason why the decline is that 50 was big. You know, he was on his business stuff, and he wasn't trying to do the music stuff anymore. We all saw it. You know, like the music wasn't the same. You know, like it was just like, man, we want to see that. You know, Get Rich or Die Trying fifth, but that was done. You know, he made a lot of money, and I think that also played a role into why the decline of G Unit.
Absolutely what you're saying. And I think, as you said, 2017 to right now, saying you don't really hear him say 50. He's gone by his official name, Curtis Jackson now, and then now producing shows and everything. He's evolved. He realized he's an entrepreneur. Like as you know, Ty is correct about him. You know what I'm saying? He's focused on different things. He is still trying to stay relevant in different medias as of today. So he still, do I think, obviously there's a question for all y'all too. Do we think that 50 had a major part in the evolution of hip hop? Yes. But 50, would you say so too? Yes. But again, he's evolved. Just like any other artist, he is trying to stay relevant. He is trying to get in different avenues to keep himself involved in money making businesses. He's a businessman. That's what 50 is. And saying as much as the thing, even though he has basically isolated himself from all his friends and family that he used to have and all his, you know what I'm saying? It's true. It's true.
Not Yayo. Not Yayo.
Oh, yeah, Yayo will always be around.
That's one thing that we know.
When he needs that foot rubs, he can just call Yayo on that phone. Yayo, I need that special.
Well, we ending this podcast with So Seductive playing in the background. Oh man, no, but I totally see what you're saying, Cam, and I'll say it like this because the whole reason why I wanted to speak on this topic is there's no denying, even for somebody who used to just absolutely despise the unit and 50 Cent, I can say this: there's no denying that the huge amount of impact that they played for such a short amount of time, and not just in hip hop, but as that trickled into mainstream media, and as I mentioned, I mean, and just the presence of G Unit. It was a real thing. It was a very real and just in your face, and you couldn't go anywhere without it being present in some form or way. Now, as far as being relevant, yes, I can't knock somebody's hustle or trying to make it out there. 50 is trying different avenues. Now, does the name 50 Cent mean anything in hip hop today? Me personally, I would say no. There's just because we're so separated from 2003. You know what I mean? Like with all the talent and all the artists and other rappers that are currently in the game right now, it's no wonder if you say the name 50 Cent, does it hold that same weight that it did back then? No. And hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. So no, not in hip hop. Now apparently you guys might know more about this than me, but apparently, Cam, what you were saying, I guess he's involved in TV shows and stuff like that nowadays, or is that what he's kind of mainly focusing on?
Mm-hmm. You are correct and everything.
Because like I said, I haven't kept up much with what he does nowadays. But so, yeah. And if that's the route, hey, more power to him. I would say I can respect his entrepreneurship. I can respect his hustle. Would I want to meet the guy in person? Probably not. He doesn't sound like somebody I would really care to get a drink with or shake hands with, but hey, that's just me,
Yeah, I totally agree, Ace, on that. I mean, they are probably one of the most impactful groups in hip hop history. I mean, you have Wu-Tang, you got NWA, you got, and of course you got G Unit. G Unit is something that we will always remember because it was part of our era, our childhood. They played a major role, and they're gonna always, live on, man. It's unfortunate they only had a short amount of time to do what they had. It would have been nice if they had a longer run, but it is what it is. They all did. They all played their role. 50 did his thing. Banks had his little run for a while. Buck did too. Game had his run. Yayo did what he could do. So I mean, hey, it was just an exciting time to have G Unit at that time because it was something different, and it was something new. It was something fresh, and it was that East Coast hardcore gangster rap that I want to say we was kind of yearning for,
Oh yeah.
So it was nice to have that, man. It was nice.
And if I could just chime in on that too, like, and I will encourage anybody, especially if you're younger and you're listening to this, like, don't shy away. Like, I'm always like this, like, nowadays we live in this era where like everybody's looking for the hottest and newest song. I mean, music moves so much faster than it did back then too. I mean, nowadays you could be listening to a single and then not with not even the same week have already moved on to the next single. Just the way the music gets released nowadays and everything. But I encourage you guys to, if you can, be open-minded and, music, don't look at it as, I mean, you can look at it as progression, but I would encourage people to look at it as more of just like just a wave of different options and accessibility, And in that sense, what I'm trying to get to is say that if you ever have time or if you're ever curious, dive into that G Unit era, that early 2000 G Unit era. Those are good albums. Like, even, and like I said, this is coming from someone who used to diss the heck out of those guys back in, during the game and a G Unit feud. But even I can say that I can go back and I can thoroughly enjoy those beats. The lyrical ability is there, the catchy melodic melodies, the hooks, all of it. And even sometimes, like Ty was saying, like, we craved it because it was new at the time. But even nowadays, like, if you're kind of getting tired of the current sound, right? Maybe you're listening to a particular genre or different sound of hip hop and you want like a refresher or something different. I would say you couldn't go wrong with diving into that era. Definitely, it's gritty, cold, mean type of sound, but it slaps. I say it like that.
It does.
It's pretty nice.
It does.
So definitely, the music's still good. I'll say it like that. The music's still good, and I encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what A said. Just always go back and look at your history, man. To the younger folks out there, always go back and look at the history of things, man. And you'll be surprised by some of the things that you'll see or read or even hear, And you might enjoy what you hear, the music, and even just the artist. You know what I'm saying? You just never know. Just it's always good to just explore and just see things, man, and don't just be closed-minded, but be open-minded.
For sure. Cam, you got anything to say?
Like I said, I thank y'all. Like I said, we talked a lot and we said some great things. I left everything on the table that I feel about. Like I said, Junior was an amazing group. I think that 50 and his legacy and the whole group's legacy will live on. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you look at the whole hip hop community. Yeah, they are history and they are one of the core features of the change that happened and that revitalization of the East Coast vibe at the time. And it was a great situation that happened during that time. Obviously, change happens, and but again, it's a story of the rise and fall because again of one man who let his ego keep going and getting in the way of trying to make his team better. Like I said, when you let your ego get to that point, it's all he just kept going with his ego and he destroyed his whole group from the inside out himself. And that's just very sad that he let that affect his and the whole group's future together in a way. So I think like that. I think those are my what I'm saying, that's really all I could say about it and everything.
All right. Well, yeah, no, definitely. Just a side note, have you guys? Cause he's written several books. Have you guys read any of those or know anything about them?
I know about them, but I haven't read any of them.
Yeah, me neither. I'll have to dive into it because I think he even has like the 50th Law or something like that. Yeah, with Robert Greene.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
To go along with the 48 Laws of Power.
Oh man, he had some more.
He had.
He got like
Yeah,
one. He got another one from like Pieces to Wait. He got another one that just came out maybe a couple years ago. Yeah.
I mean, well, I think I think that might be good for the first episode. I think we might call it there. But like I said, to our listeners, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us on this conversation. Just out of curiosity, what do you guys think about the unit, about 50, about any of the members, about the beefs, Do you agree with those? Your thoughts? Definitely feel free to share them down below. This will be posted up. I want to say, be on the lookout for episode 2. That's definitely in the works. Sounds like, I think I can go ahead and spoil this. Sounds like next episode we're going to be talking about Def Jam Fight for New York. Now, this is going to be a hip-hop related video game, but we'll expand it. We're going to be talking about Def Jam as a series, because there is technically 3 games in the series, and then there's also like a PSP title that was released as well. But we're going to talk about all that story. I'm going to try to dig up some research, some information about how it got started, and just kind of our personal thoughts on this, But that'll be second episode. The holiday is coming up, Christmas or whatever holiday that you'll be celebrating. So we will be taking a break, but episode 2 will be coming out shortly after. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And you guys know where to find me. This is Ace, and feel free to subscribe. Dark Purple Gold Roses is the channel. And as far as my fellow cohorts here, do you guys have your outros or anything else you'd like to shout out? Cam's making a channel about.
I didn't say any of that. Don't even start that list. Like I said,
He was a little
I'm hearing
nervous.
everything. Like I said, I'm new to this little YouTube thing and everything. I hope that y'all enjoyed our conversation and everything. Like, what I'm saying. And, as always, I'm saying, shout out to Ashanti if you're out there.
Again? Come on, man.
Listening to this podcast, hit me up, say I got social media, just, write a review and, I'll get your DMs. You know how I feel about that.
Damn.
All right.
All right.
That
was a good outro, bro.
What I'm saying? I'm always out here, just grinding.
Yeah, Cam's always out here. We love him. We love him.
Out here, man.
Ty?
So yeah, I'm Ty. Thank y'all for listening. We definitely will be back here with another episode. Continue to check us out, comment, like, subscribe. Also, just let us know what you guys think, and also give us some ideas of what you guys want us to talk about. Let us know. You can also follow me at Southpaw Boxing 77. I'll be doing boxing topics on there. But yeah, thank y'all, and I hope y'all enjoy it. And yeah, we'll be back here for more.
Yes, we'll definitely be back here for more, and I'll put a link for TY's Southpaw Boxing 77 channel down below in the description. And yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Like TY said, click the bell for notifications, subscribe, and yes, we're definitely going to be coming back with more episodes. And if you have suggestions, ideas, maybe it's about G-Unit again, because like I said, we could literally talk about this topic for days and days, because we didn't even get into some of the other members of G-Unit that signed up in the 2010s, the reunions. Yeah, we could get in more details about
we
the
didn't
beefs.
get the kid.
Yeah, we didn't get the kid.
We didn't get any of that stuff.
Yeah, no, we didn't get the kid. We didn't get to the TOS album that came out in 2009.
Yeah, or the G-Unit albums, reunion albums.
Yeah, so I mean, the unit goes on and on. So, but yes, thank you guys so much for listening, and yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. All right. Take care.
Wait till I do. We move at God's speed, our purpose is true. We move at God's speed, our purpose is true.